Welcome to Pride Talk 2023. We are happy to have everyone here today, wherever you're dialing from. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for signing up and for joining this event. Let's get started as we have a very, very tight agenda. We know we always like to pack everything in just 90 minutes. So let's see who will be hosting this event today. Raymond, over to you. Raymond.
First technical glitch of the evening. Hey everyone, I'm Raymond, pronoun he, him. I'm currently in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm one of the co-founders of Shanghai Pride. I was based in Shanghai, China from 2010 to 2020. My day job is in global marketing, digital marketing, and e-commerce. I'm currently pursuing my MBA at Asia School of Business with MIT Sloan in Kuala Lumpur. Great evening, and I hope everyone had fun at Pride Talk 2023.
Yes, so I'm Charlene. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Currently, I'm in Den Haag, The Hague, in the Netherlands. I'm the co-founder of Shanghai Pride Ladies Who Tech D&I Consulting and also executive board member of ILGA Asia. Over to you, Catherine.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, she, her, originally from Denmark. I'm now living in Amsterdam, but also right now I'm in Den Haag. My day job is HR people partner in the tech industry, and my night job is an event organization for diversity and inclusion. I started being an active ally and advocate since I started volunteering for Shanghai Pride in 2020, when I started co-managing the Pride Talk. So really excited to have everyone here today.
What is Pride Talk? Some of you have attended the Pride Talk in Shanghai. We started in Shanghai as an in-person event every June. The last few were at the fabulous Glam, if you remember, at the beautiful location by the Bund. We have decided this year actually last year, to bring Pride Talk online. And this year we have decided to go regional after we attended Sydney World Pride in March, because we met so many inspiring people from this region, Asia. We are grateful to have everyone join from all corners of the world.
So what's going to happen today? So today we will have 7 talks. All speakers are very diverse, but they're all affiliated with Asia. So we have people from China, Thailand, Nepal, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and even an American in the Philippines. They all represent the colorful LGBTQ+ community. So after each talk, we will have a little Q&A session. Please, as we mentioned before, put your questions in the chat box, and then we will manage from there. And in the end, we will have a group photo. So let's get started.
All right. We have our very first speaker, Jeiz Robles, and she will be presenting her own slides and a little bit about Jeiz. Her pronouns are she, her. She is a workplace inclusion champion, ranked number 6 by Involve Global LGBT+ Future Leaders for 2022. Jeiz is an Asian, cisgender, bisexual, neurodivergent woman who champions societal inclusion by actively influencing LGBT+ inclusion strategies, policies, and programs through work with employee resource groups, business leaders, and civil society organizations. So I'm going to hand over the floor to Jeiz.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlene, for that. So much energy. I don't know if I can match that. Is this good enough? Woo! Happy Pride!
Happy Pride!
Right. First off, can you see my slide in presentation mode?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. All right. So I chose to project my own slides because I have kind of a dramatic effect in terms of the clicking. So I needed to make sure that I do that. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeiz Robles, and I'm a workplace inclusion champion. As a job, I do a gay job within IBM as marketplace diversity leader. But when I'm not doing that, I'm also a wife, a sister, a table tennis player, even badminton. And I work with other organizations like the Philippine Financial Inter-Industry Pride, where I sit in the board of the Philippine Business Disability Network. But I'm now in Thailand, in Bangkok. So I also now start working in creating business networks that works for inclusion in the workplace. So that's a little bit about me. So let's, I guess, start from the very beginning. I wasn't sure where to start when I was asked to share my story. So let me start when I was a baby. Kidding, I'll be here forever. I grew up in a highly Catholic home. My parents would alternate going abroad to sustain our needs. So more often than not, I was being raised by one parent. I was the eldest amongst my siblings, and I was taking care of them. And I grew up in a big clan with lots and lots of cousins where there are standards, of course, on what families should look like. Growing up, I wasn't really able to identify my sexual orientation. I don't recall getting attracted to girls at an early age. However, one thing I was sure of is I know that I'll have a family. My fiance in my dreams, however, did not have a face. So I guess back then I already had an inkling. When I was in high school, I had my first relationship. Let me take you back to that moment when I decided I'm going to tell my mom because we're very close and we talk about these things. So I was sitting in the living room. My mom was cooking in the kitchen. I stand up. I approached her slowly and said, "Mom," of course in Filipino, but "Mom, I need to tell you something." She looks at me, and as I was about to spit it out, I wanted to say, "Mom, I have a girlfriend." The look in her eyes made me hesitate. All that gathered courage deteriorated, and I said, "Mom, I had a relationship with another girl. I know it was wrong, and now it's over." And of course, I cried. I said it's over even though it wasn't. Then I really had to end it. At that point, I guess I wasn't ready. My journey to self-acceptance was yet to take place, and it wasn't the moment that I thought it was. Eventually, I went to college. Look at how thin I was back then, a few decades ago. Far, far away from my family. I was much freer. And I remember back then when I refused to join the basketball team, despite loving the game so much because there were stereotypes attached to that. And I said, I'm not one of them because according to my mother, I will go to hell if I was. My children will bear the consequences of my so-called choices, as if it was a choice. I was starting to finish my first year when I met my then partner, now spouse, Steph. She's also a DNI professional and an advocate. Disclaimer, we have perpetual permission to out each other. We don't typically out others. You already know that, and it's their experience to have. But with Steph, my life has been full of adventures. I started accepting myself. I started accepting that this is who I will be and that she was the person I wanted to be with forever. And she's on the side hearing me talk about her, and she's like, so yeah, eventually we had our holy union. Same-sex marriage is not recognized in the Philippines. This was a ceremony to commit in front of our families and our friends. If only I can get that thing again. Anyway, eventually we started thinking about how our kids can look like. That's how our DNI journey actually started in 2013. So some apps said this is how our kids might look like if our faces were combined, but these just look like random Asian kids. Anyway, we decided to start our own family in 2013 in the Philippines. And we had so many questions. Do we take the medical approach? Is it even allowed? Is adoption easier? How do we handle insurance, taxes, dependent declaration? How do we deal with it? So no good from a societal level, at least from where we're standing. So we decided if we can't have the benefits that we deserve, maybe we can work on it within the company. And so we started working on domestic partner benefits, or equal benefits, as we also call them. And that actually paved the way for us to be recognized as an honoree for the Emerging BRG Award for Out and Equal in 2016. It's a first for any BRG in Asia. And our company sent us to Orlando, where we stayed not just anywhere, but in one of the happiest places on earth, they say, Disney World. So for those of you who's been to Out and Equal, you know how it feels being amongst thousands of like-minded individuals LGBT and allies in the happiest places on earth. And that trip actually allowed us to have a side trip and get married in New York. So yeah, that's us in New York. So very, very happy that we finally have a certificate that is from a government, not our government, not one that our government recognizes, but at least it's from a government. So now, being LGBT plus in the Philippines is not typically this. Not everyone is afforded the same acceptance and recognition. There are those who continue to hide even from themselves because while there are no legal impediments to our existence, family values are very important to a lot of us, and religion plays a very big role in how everything functions, no matter how much people deny that. And now that I'm in Thailand, I'm learning the same. It's not necessarily religion, but it's the concept of karma and merit, demerit. It's still coming from somewhere. So it's a privilege to be in a workplace that not only accepts us for who we are, but celebrates us, which in turn we would appreciate the most and be loyal to. As they would say, if as part of the LGBT plus community or other communities, one has managed to climb the organization, it is our obligation to send the elevator down to others. This is how I'm in front of you today, continuing to speak about the community and doing it as my day job. Again, I never had to think twice about being myself, nor had to spend time about what others might say. And while one might see this as a return on investment by my company, me growing, bringing in business, for me, this was IBM making life happen for me, removing the obstacles I would otherwise have. So, this is why my vision has been inclusive workplaces for all. Everyone deserves the treatment and benefits that allow us to be the best version of ourselves. The same reason that I push to be more active, to be in PFIP, where I sit as part of the board, and with PFIP growing with 5-member companies as they were starting now to 80 companies, that actually says a lot. And much like other countries in Asia, we still have a long way to go. There are those who are yet to know if they will even accept themselves. So here's to more Pride Summits, leadership forums, Pride marches, and more. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Woohoo!
That was amazing.
Yeah, this is the first time I hear your story actually. And you know what? I always don't like rehearsals because the first impact is always like the wow, you have that wow factor. Okay. Folks, if you have any questions, just put it in the box. If not, I'm going to ask my first question because actually I have a few. Jeiz, you are a champion of inclusion, right, in the corporate world. Now, I know some of us here are in the corporate world, and some of us here might even want to do some DEI work, or even start it, whether we're in the middle of journey or we're just beginning. What would, especially for LGBT plus inclusion, right? What is the advice that you would give to some of us here?
I think it will be something I would have given myself when I was also starting, right? It's not easy, definitely not easy. There are so many people who have their own biases when it comes to what we want to work on. For example, when we started working on equal benefits, it wasn't just an automatic yes. It was a journey to finding an ally who has the influence, a journey to convincing somebody who's saying, no, that's not allowed, for them to know that that's their own personal bias of what family should look like. And so if I just gave up, if I just listened to the several no's that I heard, then I don't know if I'll be here with you right now. Maybe I'm an HR professional working on labor cases, I don't know. But I won't be a DNI professional, and I won't be working on the different things for different organizations. So I guess one is, don't just take no for an answer. If they say no, find a way for them to explain. And if it's not valid, we just keep on talking. And for those days where you feel like this is too hard, too much for me, I try to remember that I do what I do for the people who can't even get up who can't even speak up because they need us. So I guess that mindset would be my first advice. And then we're here for you. I'm here for you. You can add me on LinkedIn. We can chat later and we can talk about how to actually mobilize your company or your community in your organization.
Thank you for that advice, Jeiz. There are some questions also in the chat box, and if you feel like it, do help to reply some of them. I will keep one more of mine to later on. For now, I'm going to hand the floor over to Raymond, who will be introducing our second speaker. Raymond.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Jeiz. That's a really amazing opening, sharing. So now I'm gonna switch the gear to Mandarin. So make sure you switch on those subtitles and get those translation coming in. 好，谢谢。接下来呢，我们要邀请一位很好的，我个人我们很好的朋友，一起来做这一次第2位的分享。那接下来我们要邀请的是燕子，燕子是一个同性恋男性，在30多岁的时候，经历了电击转化疗法，然后他将这个职业生涯致力于为中国的 LGBTQ 社群成员提供法律支持，还有燕子在我们社群里做了很多的工作。那接下来把舞台交给燕子来跟我们一起分享他现在的故事和进展。
Thanks, Raymond. Okay, it's okay for me to speak in Mandarin.
Yes, totally.
Okay. Yeah, 谢谢。我叫 My name is Yanzi, and I work for LGBT Rights Advocacy China. And during the past 10 years, I work in the LGBT movement in China. And here's my story. 接下来分享我的故事。请下一页。大家可以看到左边有一张照片，是我在sorry, the previous one 好这个是我在 when I was young， 然后非常年轻和可爱的时候那个时候我在读小学，然后但是从小到大我经常因为比较斯文和比较安静，个子比较小，所以经常会被起外号，就是在中文里面的娘娘腔啊，什么叫我妹妹啊、姐姐啊，什么都有。然后那个时候非常多男性的同学会经常到在上厕所的时候会说你有没有小鸡鸡啊，是不是男啊，什么之类的。所以在整个小学、中学的读书里面，我都只能都没有，从来都没有在学校上过厕所，然后都忍着回家才上。但是在12岁的时候，the first number 12， 12岁的时候是我第一次跟班里面一个男性的同学就突然发现很想要靠近他，然后我也不知道这是什么回事。我生长在广东的一个乡村里面，然后会让我觉得那个时候会觉得很自然，就是想做很好的朋友，因为没有任何的意识。直到中学的时候才开始意识为什么所有人都在讨论跟异性相关的内容，而我只能跟喜欢同性这样子。那直到了我上大学，然后我进入了一个工科学校，我读的是机械工程。那个时候我们班里41个人有40个男生，只有1个女生。然后在那么多男性为主的这个校园里面，让我觉得没有那么的舒服，因为很 masculinity， 就是很叫什么，非常的讲究男性气质。然后我就特地的让自己去参加一些volunteer group， 然后比如说这个照片里面，我尝试 非常大的努力让自己喜欢上照片里面的另外一个女生，实际上心里面喜欢的是照片里面的某个男生，但是我不会告诉你们他们是谁。然后所以在整个大学的生涯里面，我还是不断的去说服自己，要喜欢女生这件事，但是是一件很困难的事。直到我大学毕业以后，然后我的工作进入了NGO 工作，但不是做跟 LGBT 相关。到了我27岁那一年，我参加了一个在48小时以内走100公里的一个 hiking 的 competition，它是一个慈善活动。那当我走到了大概30个小时60公里的时候，突然发现很累，然后我觉得我也不知道为什么，内心里面充满了力量，觉得没有什么事情我不能面对的。所以那个时候我就跟同行的伙伴说，有一件事情对我来说很重要，但是我一直都没有办法面对，现在我终于可以了。我就等着他来问是什么事，结果他没有问，所以他错过了一个让我成为我第一个出柜的人，非常可惜。但是我那个时候就下定决心，去打电话给当时我喜欢的另外一个男生，跟他说这件事，一样的开场白，说有一件事情对我来说很重要，我一直都没有办法面对，现在我终于可以了。然后因为他是一个直男，然后他的反应就说：“哦，那个我看过，他说他看过一部电影叫《I Love You, Morris》，然后他觉得那是一个很好的同志电影，说了一些很正面的话。他的这个反应让我非常的鼓舞，让我觉得我不需要害怕任何的东西，然后所以这是我觉得我非常的幸运，因为能够遇上一个很友好的人。但是后来我发现，不是所有人都跟我那么的幸运。在2015年 UNDP 北京做过一个 survey，然后在中国大陆里，只有5%的人，他们在 workplace 里面是fully open 的。然后在家里面 open 的可能大概有10%。那在这右边的这个中国地图里面，有120多家医院和诊所正在扭转治疗，正在提供这个扭转治疗的这个服务。非常多的社群的朋友告诉我们，他们在经历扭转治疗。所以我觉得为什么可以扭转治疗这个事，所以我在2014年的时候自己也决定去到了一个重庆的心理咨询机构去经历一次扭转治疗。所以在2014年春节了以后，我就去到这个诊所，然后在这个心理咨询师把我带进了一个小房间里面，对我进行催眠，然后让我想象跟同性发生关系的一个情景，然后就开始用他的电击治疗仪来戳我的手背，然后他用这样子的方式想要去说服用一个很负面的反应，对我进行这种烟雾疗法。我当时非常的害怕，然后吓了一跳，就逃走了。然后结束了以后，我就开始了这个在北京起诉了这家心理咨询机构，因为我知道扭转治疗是不可以成功的，而且它应该是需要被得到惩罚的。所以在2014年，我发起了这个诉讼，结果取得了胜诉，这是中国第一例的 LGBT 的litigation。然后在这个判决书里面，这个法官还非常的正面的第一次提到同性恋不是精神疾病，在他的判决书里面，然后所有承诺可以提供扭转治疗的广告都是违法的， 这个胜利，我们把它不断的在这个媒体上传播，然后当时的电视，包括国家的电视台都在讲这个例子，以至于我的家人也是第一次通过电视知道我是同志这件事。那但是扭转治疗并没有因为这样而停止在中国，特别是最近这几年跨性别的未成年人，他们经历一旦被家里发现就会被送去扭转治疗，然后非常多官方背景的医院都在提供这个扭转治疗的服务。那所以我们不断的在过去的10年里面，通过 litigation 作为一个重要的 strategy 去advocate for our rights， 然后我们发起了13个诉讼，那个诉讼里面包含 employment discrimination、marriage equality 和 media censorship， 然后我们有一部分取得了胜诉，但是更多当我们起诉的对象是政府部门的时候，我们就没有办法取得胜诉。那这些诉讼包括，比如说有大学生去起诉教育部，因为教科书里面写了很多跟同性恋是精神疾病的这个内容。然后我们也支持幼儿园的老师，他因为性倾向被辞退了以后去发起这个诉讼，这是中国第一例这种公开起诉的就业歧视案然后他还取得了胜诉。那我们的诉讼里面，在 social media， 在中国的媒体上引发了非常大量的讨论。右下角是我们在中国有一个 LGBT friendly lawyers network， 有非常多的律师来加入我们，提供这样子的帮助。在2019年的时候，我们和上海 Pride 和不同的中国的机构带动了18万人参与这个中国民法典关于 same-sex marriage 的这个 legal campaign， 然后有非常多社群的朋友给中国的立法机关寄信，寄他们的照片，寄他们的 same-sex story， 然后要求同性婚姻的合法。但是从2020年开始，中国对 LGBT organization social movement 的环境发生了非常大的变化，有非常多的同志机构的活动组织都被限制，都被停止，然后非常多活动都进行不了，很多 organization 被 crack down， 然后这对于中国的 LGBT 组织来说是一个非常大的挑战，我们也不知道下一步应该怎么样。但是结束之前，我也想觉得，可能我认为在未来的策略里面，更多是需要每个人从日常生活里面，就是每个 individual 的 daily life 不会被 censor， 是叫什么？没有办法被 erase 掉的，所以我们需要把自己变成一个 change maker、change agent， 去带动从日常生活里面去带动更多的改变。谢谢，这是我的分享。Thank you. Sorry.
谢谢燕子，谢谢燕子太棒了，好久
Hero
绝对是我们一个非常重要，在中国大陆甚至区域性LGBT 运动里边非常重要的一个角色。在这么多年来，我们和燕子一步一脚印，经历了很多，一起参与和组织了很多的活动。然后接下来我们可能有一些问题，如果说大家有一些问题的话，可以在聊天里面放入你的问题，或者是我可以开始。So I was just saying that it was really inspiring to work with Yanzi throughout the years. He has been really, of course, a motivator, a great peer in the LGBT movement in mainland China and regionally. We have walked through a lot of cases and events and organizing events together with Yanzi. So if you have questions for Yanzi, feel free to put it inside the chat box. And I have my questions too. So I'll probably kickstart with that and we can see what's in the chat box. 所以第一个问题，燕子，那我们刚才最后的时候，你说到个人，还是可以成为那个改变的这个，我们还是可以做出很多的改变，而且发自我们自己个人的力量。那在你看来，个人如何能成为这个改变的力量？我们能够做些什么？可能给大家在今天在线上的所有的来宾或参与者一些可行动的一些东西吧。I'm asking Yanzi, how could individuals be the change, and what can we really do? Small steps, may it be small, but what can we really do? Yes, Yanzi.
对，我自己其实有一个改变的公式，这个公式里面，第一步是 dare to imagine，就是你敢于想，就敢于想象，因为很多时候我们有一些 idea 的时候，就会有另外一些脑袋里面的警察告诉我们说，哦，不可能的，不可能的，然后我们就不做了。所以我觉得第一步应该是敢于想。然后第二步最重要的就是敢于做，就是当你有一些 idea 的时候，马上采取一些行动。我觉得没有其他的策略，只有行动才是真的。我们有太多的一些想法或者是评论，但是真正能够改变的，可能就是我们能做一些日常的行动。而我认为目前的环境下，这个行动其实有非常多的空间，作为 individual。然后我们在 daily life 很小的，你把这个活动的信息分享出去，就可以影响身边的一些人。当你跟另外一个人讲 LGBT 的相关的 story 的时候，你就可以改变另外一个人。当你在 workplace 在工作场合可以力所能及的做一些事情，你在路上走路的时候，你的包上有个彩虹，可能就可以引发更多人的这种讨论，所以我觉得这些可以做的事情是挺多的。
谢谢燕子。再来，我还有一个问题，就是在你就是你如何看待目前就是中国当前的这个倡导的环境？然后在我们这些不确定性和限制之下，可能在场的来宾们其实也有一些是企业，或者是在中国有一些分部，甚至是我们有一些比较资深的志愿者在这里。我们能做些什么？从一个刚才我们谈到个人 individual， 那在我们有更多能力的范围之下，我们可以做些什么？
Yeah, I make it into English. So I know that there are so many news like talk about the shrinking of the civil society LGBT movement in China. That's true, and especially for the LGBT organizations and activists, they face a lot of pressure and challenge. But that's the important reason, or at this moment, it's important that everybody need to take action to do something to support to our community. I think especially for the workplace diversity inclusion, we still have many spaces on workplace. Like there are many company, multinational company like IBM as well. Like they keep doing a lot of things internally. Is at least give the benefit for the employee, and like if we have a same-sex equality policy internally in the workplace, it will be great. So I think it will not, how to say, according to the Chinese legal system, it also like it's totally okay to do that internally. Yeah.
好的，谢谢燕子 ，Thank you 燕子。I'll pass it on to Charlene.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. 谢谢燕子. All right, we have our next speaker. All right, I met him in Vietnam, but then we hung out in Kathmandu, Nepal, and we had such a good time. He is none other than Pratiik Thapa, pronouns he, him, representing Loom. Pratiik is a trans rights activist who has been working towards capacity building of trans men and transcending the barrier with equality of sexual and gender minorities community. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Pratiik, and he will be sharing his own screen.
So my name is Pratiik, and I'm a transgender man. So this is my journey. So as you can see in the picture, in my first picture, that's my mom with my 5 born brothers, while 2 of us were still unborn, and I am the only daughter with my 6 siblings who are all males. And I was born because my mother wanted a daughter, so she gave birth to 6 of my brothers and then to me. And then I grew up with my brothers and father, while my mom stayed back in a village as she was a teacher. So during my childhood, I was grown up as a male child since I stayed with my brothers and father. But when I moved to my teenage and adolescence period, there was a confusion and there was something that didn't match with my identity. Like there was a phase where I started sharing with my friends that about boys, girls liking boys. But for me, I was attracted towards women, and that was something not matching with my identity. And during those period, there was confusion, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, and yes, I went through depression too, and antidepressant were prescribed to me. It was not that I didn't look out for someone to help or someone to hear me, but when I tried, I was once beaten in my school because as per them, being a woman, probably I was with some men, and at an early teen is being in a younger relationship is a bad perspective in our society, and that further pushed me towards depression. And then I found some friends through Facebook who are still friends with me. I started sharing with them, and they were with me throughout all of those phases. As a feminine, trying to stay within the feminine character to who I am today. And they are the people who inspire me to be there for someone when someone is in need, because having people who do not judge, who do not give the suggestions on you should do this or you should do that, but someone to just listen to us can be very helpful to the mental health. That is what they did. I used to repeat the same stories every day for years, and they were always there to listen to me. And slowly by slowly, I was recovering from the depression. And then I started to work so that I could engage and keep myself busy and fight against the depression journey. So these are the pictures where I started working in a bank from a female team player. And this is my certificate, which states that me with the 2 pronunciation of him and her. So when I was working in a corporate office, I was not confident enough. I was very, I was within the fear of how to confront them and how to tell them about myself. But then in 2020, I started working in a feminist organization where I came to know about what is a safe space, what is collective care, what is movement building, and how capacity building is necessary to trans community, and how it can help to in leadership transformation. And further, they always told me that you are not alone, and there are people who care for you, and there are people who will listen to you and support you. So they sent me to ILGA Asia, and that is when I got my exposure to community from different South Asian countries. And now I had some idea. I always knew I was privileged because I had education. I had family that loved me a lot. I knew I was always privileged, and I want to do something, but after my participation to ILGA Asia, now I knew what are the gaps between the society and our opportunity between the society for the trans men community. So recently, I formed a group that is still unofficial, that is Trans Initiative, because I have gone through the same experience. And now through the group, I'm focusing towards mentorship to do those trans men who are still not confident to come forward, who are hopeless towards their future, to finding them a place for a safe co-learning space, and for the capacity building, for the leadership transformation in an higher level managerial and decision-making position. And also, after understanding how important is finding an allies who support us, I'm also working towards identifying the safe allies for us who can be support towards our journey. And yes, of course, building up their skills and guidance so that they can be confident and they can be vocal and come forward for their own capacity building. That's all. I know I missed a lots of things that was in my mind. So I would like to explain a little more about my mom and my relationship. For me, I'm a very pampered child and loved child, but the hardest part of my coming out phase was that I was so loved that I was scared of hurting my mom. I always respected her thoughts of how she waited all these years to have a female child. And when she had, my identity did not match her expectation. All those years I did self-harm because I couldn't speak and I did not have confidence to confront her. But after my involvement in the place where I work and finding a safe place and learning that we are important, and one day I decided that, okay, mom, I love you, but now I love myself more and I have to move ahead for my community as well. And that's how I recently moved out of my home too. And now I'm focused towards the initiative I have recently started. And I would also like to thank Charlene from this platform, because initially I knew I wanted to do something, but I had no idea how to start it. And I shared it with Charlene and she initially guided me through this journey. And that's all.
Oh, thank you, Pratiik, for that shout out as well. Oh my goodness. Okay, don't cry, don't cry. Yes, we are all always very afraid to hurt our mothers, but I like the part, love yourself as well. Love yourself even more. That is so important. I have one question very quickly.
Okay.
So you were saying, now I forget my question. Okay, you were saying that it's been, you had some depression, right? And if you don't mind my asking also, the work that you do must have tremendous pressure. And I know it can be very challenging. Do you have any advice? And I know some people also, go through this, people who are in similar work that you do. Do you have any advice on how to overcome such challenges? I know some of us, we don't want to even talk about it. Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, so initially before coming out, I was very much suicidal during those phases. As per my experience, I started loving people who love me. But by slowly, when I reflect my journey, those journey made me stronger and made me feel, oh my God, I'm strong, right? I did fight all those phases, and slowly I started loving myself. And currently what I do is, as every one of us knows that this is life and ups and downs keeps happening. Now, okay.
Yeah.
Everyone every human knows the ups and downs, the psychological and emotional changes through. Now I just accept it as a phase of life, like simply accept, okay, there are the negative parts, both the negative and positive part, we have to accept it. Now what we can do more about the situation, every situation. Sometimes we need a break from the all the mental and emotional ups and down, and re-energize ourselves for what we can do further, and also celebrate all those small phases and victories which can make us feel, okay, i'm the I'm the hero of my story again. Okay, I do not care about the society. I am the hero. We need to keep reminding ourselves, and that is what I would say.
Thank you so much, Pratiik. All love to you. My goodness. All right. Remember, okay, this is one thing I have to remember. Love those people who love you. Okay, thank you. Stay tuned. Any questions for Pratiik, please put it in the box again. I am going to hand over the floor to Catherine, who's next to me, to introduce our next speaker.
All right, great. Thank you. So the next speaker is Alexandrea, pronoun she, her. Alexandrea is a human rights advocate and queer scholar to the Philippines. And Alexandrea is also an omnisexual woman who is passionate about research, grassroots organizing, and pride parades, as you can see here. Alexandrea is also our volunteer with Shanghai Pride, and we are very happy and proud to hear her sharing her story today. So please welcome Alexandrea.
Yoo-hoo!
Hi, everyone. Happy Pride. Dajahao. As Catherine said, I'm currently in the Philippines, and my queer advocacy journey began in 2018 when I started working with Shanghai Pride. I identify as omnisexual, and omnisexual falls under this bi umbrella, but omnisexual people are attracted to men, women, and non-binary people. And there's this idea that gender plays a role in the attraction. But a little bit more about me. I am originally from the United States. I was raised in Kentucky by very liberal parents who did not reinforce strong gender roles. These are my lovely parents. But by age 13, I had decided that people deserve the right to love who they love, albeit from a lesbian feminist perspective of, why would I date a man when I could date a woman? I was 17 when the US Supreme Court removed most restrictions on marriage equality, and I thought SOGI equality would only improve from there. In a university, I saw that search for equality happening differently everywhere, and I wanted to join local movements. While studying in Shanghai, I met the leaders of Shanghai Pride, and I suggested that I could volunteer with them. And I'm sure they first wondered, like, oh, what are we going to do with this random international student? But us queers are persistent. And a month later, I started volunteering with Shanghai Pride. And this was like a whirlwind learning course of being an NGO. And I learned about finding sponsors, partnering with organizations, and promoting events to a broad audience. I discovered how NGOs worked with churches, bars, multinational companies, and local stores to hold a successful Pride. And I learned that Pride is perfectly quirky. The bright colors and extravagant performances are about representation and visibility. And to be honest, I used to consider most Pride gear from companies as exploiting the queer community. However, I saw in Shanghai the importance of visible support coming from local and international companies. And while I remain critical of large companies' attempts at pride washing, you can see I enjoyed rainbow donuts and pride cookies from small businesses during Pride Month. But I think the most memorable night of my time in China was we got back from a long day, and a Shanghai Pride leader started ironing the team's flags. And like in that moment, I could think of a million things I'd rather be doing then. I was like, I just want to have a drink. Why do we have to go through all of this extra trouble? But then I thought about it. And we go through extra trouble of ironing flags and making sure we look great because everything grassroots groups do matters. They are scrutinized by NGOs, society, and most recently by social media. And the flag represents the community. When the flag looks good, we all look good. And with the Shanghai Pride team, I found people passionate about creating a world where everyone can be loved and accepted. But nevertheless, sometimes the rainbow goes dim. And I realized the global nature of structural misogyny and the precarity of gender and LGBTQIA rights. Working with Shanghai Pride gave me the foundation and passion for conducting my current research. And I have been looking at the LGBTQIA community in the Philippines for the past 9 months. And this was really my first attempt to bring my passionate advocacy into research. And I wanted to focus on advocacy that I knew best, grassroots organizing. And since the Philippine government is conservative, divorce and abortion remain illegal, LGBTQIA organizations must tackle every issue affecting the community. And organizing in the Philippines looks very different from China. The government is not interested in small events, and local legislators voice their support. But the Soji bill, which would give the LGBTQIA community more rights, has been sitting in Congress for over 20 years. Hate crimes and discrimination still happen across the islands, but there is a myriad of organizations that try to focus on different populations and tackle these issues. And organizations readily collaborate to expand the audience of events. And one of the reasons that I chose to work in the Philippines is that the queer community is so visible here. The last slide shows a picture of a Miss Gay pageant Miss Gay pageant. And maybe 100 people showed up for this pageant. And I was just amazed about the community's support coming through. And while these shows might seem trivial, there's hope that the entertaining aspects of the queer community will eventually maximize LGBTQIA rights. Along with gay pageants, drag queens are everywhere in the Philippines. In the past year, the Philippines has produced 2 drag series, Dragged In and Drag Race Philippines. If you like drag shows, I would really recommend them. And I have loved the innovation and skills of the queens here. As I hinted earlier, the LGBTQIA community takes on many entertaining roles here. And as a queer person who does not perform or attempt to be funny, being here has intensified the feeling that I think most of us have felt, that if queer people are readily acknowledged by society, if they are funny or entertaining. But I don't want to discount drag queen acceptance in the Philippines, because drag queens have to defend their right to perform internationally, and queens have created a space to live in the Philippines. The shows that I have witnessed here might be protested in other countries, and compared to my home country, drag queens have fewer limitations on where and to whom they can perform. And if you can take away one thing from my presentation, it should be to find a community that loves and respects who you are. They are everywhere. I am blown away by the communities I have found in China and the Philippines. And if you can't find such a group, create one, because I am sure there are other people around you looking for a very similar group. Okay, everyone, thanks for joining us today. I have added my email here in case anyone has any questions, but I think Catherine has one for me now.
Yay, thank you so much,
Thank
Alexandrea. Great. I personally really love to see the old Shanghai Pride photos before my time. And I think I've heard a rumor that Charlene still irons her pride flag. So that could be another topic. But anyway, I'm really curious to hear a bit more about your background. You're from Kentucky in the US. How does your family and friends back home react when you tell them about what research you do? And how do you handle these reactions or potential standpoints? And do you have any?
So I think my family and friends were very supportive about my research and my work, and I'm very grateful for that. But a common question I got was, oh, why do you want to go thousands of miles away, all the way to the Philippines to do research and to look at a queer community that you don't belong to? And part of the reason, like part of my answer to them is that every queer community around the world deserves to have their story told. And there's not a lot of information about LGBTQIA groups in the Philippines, and I really wanted to add to that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the work that
Thank
you
you.
do. Of course, we really look forward to seeing all the end results from your research as well. So yay.
Me too.
Hey,
Alright.
I want that photo of me, ironing that flag. I still don't have it yet. Okay.
All right, moving on to the next speaker. I will give the floor to Raymond to present.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Alexandra. That was really amazing those days. 接下来我们要语言转换一下。我们接下来要欢迎台湾同志热线的秘书长 Choong 的分享。Choong 于2002年就加入了热线当志愿者，然后现在应该20几年了，哇哦！然后Choong一直都是积极在参与LGBTI+ 和艾滋病感染者权益的工作。那我们接下来一起来聆听Choong 给我们分享他的心路历程。
OK，请问大家听到我声音吗？
可以。
可以哈，好好。Hi everyone, my name is Choong Du. Thanks Raymond for introducing me. So now I'm the Secretary General of Taiwan Tongci Highlight Association, and I will share my personal story in Mandarin. So I will switch to Mandarin. OK， 那我接下来就分享一下我自己的一些个人的故事，好，然后也结合跟台湾的同志运动的一些发展这样子。好，可以下一张。先简单介绍一下我们机构吼，那台湾同志咨询热线协会是1998年成立的，它是台湾第一个全国性的同志组织。然后我们目前算是台湾最大同志组织，但其实我们就是13个工作人员。然后我们在台北有总会，在高雄有南部办公室。那我们就是从直接服务开始做起后，做电话咨询。那我们也开展各种不同的项目，那像是做很多社会教育、政策倡议，然后还有一些国际连接工作等等这样子。好，下一张。好，那接下来就是跟我自己的故事有关啦。那我的话，我今年是42岁了，我是1981年生的，我是照片中的右边第2位，前面的右边第2位。好，那这个是我自己抓大概大概11、12岁的那个时候，对我来说人生有个很大的转变，是我发现我喜欢上班上的男同学，然后再加上说我在我爸妈的房间中看到 A 片，我发现说我只会看男生的部分，女生对我来说就是没有特别的性吸引力，就是一个普通的身体。然后那个时候开始发现自己喜欢男生这件事情，其实对我来说是个蛮大的冲击。因为学校里面完全没有教，然后当时也没有同志这个词，当时的词就是同性恋。那同性恋其实跟很多一些负面的概念连接，比如说艾滋啊、娘娘腔啊，然后一些就是电视上面看到的角色都是一些比如变态杀手啊，或是一些奇怪的丑角等等。帮我填下一张。对，那这个是我高中时候的照片，我是照片中最左边那一位。就其实我国中、高中的时候都有喜欢过男生，然后有喜欢过班上同学，也有喜欢过学长。可是那个年代就是一个很压抑的年代。那我喜欢男生这件事情，我几乎没有跟任何人说，就自己压在心里面。然后 喜欢别人的感觉很强嘛，然后有很多的一些情绪，喜欢的、吃醋啊、生气等等的都不能跟别人讲，所以有很长一段时间我都觉得说自己感觉过得非常的孤单，好像全天下只有我一个人是同志，然后我身边中看不到任何跟我一样的人。对，来帮我贴下一张。对，那我一直到这是我大学时候，就是我念台大，然后我参加了学生的那个同志社团。那对我来说，其实是一个还蛮大的转变吼，就是我终于找到我自己的同侪。那我在大一下的时候，大一下学期的时候参加同志社团，然后开始认识到跟我一样的其他的同志的学生、学长、学姐等等。然后对我来说是一个非常大的影响，因为它让我看到同侪之后，我也开始比较能够接受自己，然后很希望能够把我自己最真实的一面让身边人知道。那我也从社团里面开始学到很多的社群文化。那我开始跟身边的一个一个同学出柜，那获得的反应跟支持也都还蛮好的。帮我贴下一个。对，那我后来也参加了我现在的组织同志咨询热线吼，我大概在2002年的时候就开始到热线当义工，然后2011年的时候变成全职工作人员。那在热线里面，其实我参与了很多同志相关一些活动跟运动，像是照片中左边这一张是那个2003年的时候第一届的同志游行。好，那大家也看到说，第一届同志游行是我们热线就是主办单位，那大家看到说照片中有这个同志咨询热线这6个字，我就是那个绿色字，我是询。然后你看到说我戴着帽子，而且我那时候用板子遮住我的脸，因为那个年代对我来说还是一个很害怕上街头然后被拍到呢，很害怕出柜，因为还没有跟家人好好面对出柜的议题这样子。那即便是这样，其实我在外面做很多事情，如果今天是没有牵涉到会被媒体拍摄，对我来说就完全不怕。像照片中右边这一张是我去学校里面开始会去跟同学、老师来谈认识同志多元性别的议题，然后去分享我自己的生命故事。因为这也连接到说，其实台湾的社会是有在进展。那2004年的时候有一个很重要的法案通过，是性别平等教育法。性别平等教育法应该算是亚洲第一个，就是在法律之中有把那个 SOGI 的概念，就是包括性别啊、性倾向、性别认同、性别气质这些概念都放进去。那学生在学校里面必须要接受一定时数的性别平等教育，其中就包括这些概念。这个法其实也是来自于另外一个事情，今天时间来不及讲，但是大家如果有机会可以去看，就是那个蔡依林歌手蔡依林9令她的有首歌《玫瑰少年》，她的背景故事就来自于这个性别平等教育法催生的这个叶永志的故事。那透过这个法，其实就有越来越多的学校会邀请我们去学校里面跟同学们谈同志的议题，所以我们也看到说，其实的确相较于比较年长的世代，年轻世代比较有机会能够接触到这些议题，然后对同志来说相对态度也比较友善。好，可以帮我贴下一张。那我就发现说，其实我在外面做的事情越来越多，然后参与同志运动也越来越多。但是我有遇到一个情况是，我发现我跟我自己的原生家庭，我跟我的家人越来越疏离。我曾经在大2那一年的时候，有试着跟我的妈妈出柜，但是结果很不好，就是我妈妈完全没办法接受，她从来没想过自己的小孩是喜欢男生的人。然后我妈一直觉得，就是叫我不要一直去看那些同性恋的书，我之后就会转回来。那我们那个冲突其实后来就不了了之，那我就知道说，我家人会不开心，会介意，那我在家里面就尽量不要讲。可是其实我在外面参与同志运动就越来越多嘛，然后也做越来越多的事情，我就发现说我越来越不喜欢就是跟家人分享事，我回到家变得很安静，我也不喜欢参加家族聚会，因为家族聚会就会见到一年见几次的亲戚，大家都会问你一些在学校干嘛，喜欢什么样的女生啊之类这些问题，都是我觉得很难回答的。对，那我跟家人的这个情况其实延续了真的时间蛮长，有10几年。我发现我跟家人越来越疏离，其实让我自己过得蛮痛苦的。我的世界变得好像2块，一块是在同志圈，在同志社群里面，我可以很自在做自己；可另外一块，我回到家的时候，我反而变得好像隐藏很大一块自己的部分。那这件事情，在我参与同志运动之后，也有出现一个很大的变化，是大概在2016年 的时候台湾又有新一波的同性婚姻的争取的运动，那一波的时候，热线其实也是主力推动的团体之一。我就发现说，我很多时候我在外面到处演讲，请大家支持同性婚姻，可我回到家我都不跟家人谈，我这样觉得太奇怪了，所以我就开始试着去跟家人谈一些这些事情，然后也包括说，我也把我的家人所有的亲戚我知道的开始加到我的社群媒体，我的脸书，过去我是完全不让他们知道的。那我就发现有些蛮大的一些转变，比如说像是照片中左边这张，其实就是我们一些争取那个同性婚姻的一些大型集会过程，我们就办很多这样的活动。那我想讲的是右边这个是某一次就是我们办一个大型活动的时候，然后我妈妈就有传讯息给我们，因为那一次的活动其实是台湾的那个国会叫立法院嘛，立法院那一次是因为立法院要通过这个同性婚姻的草案，所以当时支持的团体跟反对的团体，大家就聚集在立法院的两边，所以就是很担心说会不会就因为靠得太近了，会不会有些冲突出现。那个时候我早上就一大早就跟同事们一起去现场开始布置，然后做一些准备，然后我就收到我妈妈传来右边的这个讯息，就是她说爸爸说在大型活动中有人喊冲就躲远一点，然后注意自己的安全这样子。虽然这些讲得很隐晦，好像也没有提到任何同志或同婚的事情，可是你知道那个对我来说是我妈妈第一次就是很主动的去表达她跟我爸对于我参与这些事情的关心，然后她也没有叫我不要去做这些事或不要参与这些事，因为她知道我就是在里面。她的态度已经转变了，变得是说她希望是就是至少我要注意自己的安全，不要受伤这样子。对我来说是一个非常大的振奋，也包括说我后来其实也看到我有些亲戚，在帮他们加入我的脸书之后，他们也会在他们的脸书上面写说他支持婚姻平权，他支持同志，然后那对我来说都是非常大的力量。好，下一页。对啊，那但是其实台湾到现在，不好意思，我中间跳得非常快，可是因为时间来不及，那我是想讲说，就是其实我们到现在对台湾好像已经有一些进展。我们在2019年通过同性婚姻，然后这几年陆续的让就是跨国的同性婚姻跟比如说同志可以共同收养这些权利相继都获得平等的对待，但我们其实还是有很多需要努力的地方。对，那有一些比如说像是跨性别的处境，或者像是同志学生啊，在校园里面还是会遇到一些负面的嘲笑对待等等，或是也有很多同志朋友在职场中是没有办法自在出柜的，这些都是让我们知道说我们还是必须要持续的努力。那我觉得我很幸运的是，我有找到一群同才，像是照片中左边这边是我们的就是热线的这些同事们，当然也不是只有热线一个团体可以做到，其实我们有很多其他的团体，跟我们有超级多的志工，大家一起努力。我知道刚刚听到很多伙伴的不同地区伙伴的分享，大家都是很需要有这些同才，大家一起努力，我们才能够做更多事。那我也希望说，我们就是台湾可以继续努力，然后也可以跟大家一起加油这样子。好，我分享就到这边，好，谢谢。
谢谢Sean，谢谢 Sean，非常不容易，20几年的这个加入到社群的运动中。我这里有一个快速的问题，可能相对比较严肃，有别于你刚才非常感动跟非常鼓舞的这样子的一个分享。就鉴于最近的这个同性婚姻，就台湾同性婚姻还有领养方面的这个胜利啊，台湾还面临哪些主要的一些挑战？你可以跟我们分享1、2个。然后你认为台湾会像美国那样有这个关于跨性别社群的这个反弹吗？对，所以在这个部分可能可以跟大家分享一下。So I have a question for Sean, which is probably more serious compared to the passionate and loving, motivating sharing that Sean did. I mean, we all know throughout these years that the same-sex marriage and the adoption act just passed in Taiwan. But what are some of the challenges that remains in Taiwan? And also, with the current situation in the US, do you see that Taiwan having a backlash in terms of the trans movement? similarly in Taiwan. So yeah, something that Sean might want to respond to.
OK， 谢谢 Raymond 的提问，其实蛮重要的哦，也让大家知道说，我刚刚在最后面有提到，其实台湾虽然好像已经通过一些同性婚姻的，就是我们通过同性婚姻以及一些相关的一些权利，是一个蛮大进展，但其实我们还是有面对到蛮多的问题哈。那刚刚你特别提到的那个跨性别，其实就是一个其中一个很受到目前受到那个。就是针对的一个族群这样子，那的确在台湾就是跨性别朋友，虽然可以改变，应该说跨性别朋友在台湾其实是可以去透过动手术，然后去改变自己身份证件上面的性别，可其实这整个过程是非常困难。那在日常生活中，还有在职场或者在医疗途径中，其实还是遇到一些不友善的对待。那像是一些国际上面听到，比如说从美国那边有的一些关于反跨的一些论述，其实在台湾也都可以听得到。我们现在在一些那个政府相关一些会议之中，或是一些一些人权公约的会议之中，其实都会遇到一些反同的团体，大部分都是宗教背景的团体，就是也是会拿这些论述来攻击跨性别族群。对，所以这些事情是真实存在。那另外是我刚刚有简单提一下，其实我们有陆续，包括我们跟其他团体有陆续做一些调查，我们都有看到说，同志学生在学校里面，其实因为台湾虽然有性别平等教育法，可是学生真的是很看运气，你运气好的，学校有提供相关的教育，老师支持，同学支持，你就过得好。但是有些人他还是在学校里面，就是学校不教，然后他被歧视对待。那另外是像是同志在职场中的处境，也很看你所在的公司。现在已经有越来越多的公司企业会重视那个 DEI 的议题，但是大部分是集中在跨国的大企业。那所以其实台湾很多本土的中小企业根本就是同志的议题离他们都还很远。那我们也看到很多同志朋友其实在职场中是没有办法自在出柜。那另外也有从别的调查中看到说，其实家庭的接受度有比较好一点，但还是不够。特别是爸爸，其实通常也是同志会比较不会愿意出柜的对象。所以其实这些从包括台湾内部的，我们看到自己本身有一些议题，我们也看到说，其实反同力量也是在彼此的国际上面互相连结。这是让我们觉得说，就是第一个是我们很重要，是我们要有更多的包括台湾内部的盟友，这些盟友可能是来自于政治领域，来自于不同的专业。这个我们在过去争取同性婚姻的时候就已经努力在打造，那我们有持续在做这件事情。另外我们也觉得说，其实有很重要是我们也要有持续有国际连结，因为像那个反同反跨的这种国际的运动，其实我们都可以看到在不同的亚洲地区都有出现。那所以其实对我们来说，我觉得国际连结其实真的很重要。那我们也过去因为我们自己的一些台湾的特殊地位，我们比较难有机会跟其他国家交流。可是我觉得这个交流的限制现在已经越来越低。就像今天很感谢就是Charlene、Raymond 你们有这个机会让我们来跟大家分享，然后也有机会认识到更多一些的那个其他的运动者。那希望我们可以更多连接的机会，这样子，谢谢。
好的，谢谢 Sean， 非常好的回复。然后如果说大家有任何问题的话，我们还可以在聊天里面回复啊，谢谢 Sean。Pass it back to Charlene.
All right.
All right, thank you so much, Sean. So we have 2 more speakers coming up, so please stay on the line if you can. The next speaker is Lisa Lam, pronouns she, her. She's a co-chair of Gay Games Hong Kong. Lisa is a lawyer by training, but takes pride in people telling her that she's not like a lawyer. Currently, Lisa runs her own legal consulting business in the digital finance space. Outside of her day job, Lisa also has her gay job as the co-chair and general counsel of Gay Games 11 Hong Kong 2023. So please welcome Lisa.
Hi, hey, thank you, Catherine, and good morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. So yes, I know that thank you very much for inviting me to share my personal story. But perhaps before I go into my personal story, I will spend a minute or so just to let people know what Gay Games is all about. So Gay Games is a registered charity in Hong Kong, and we run fully by volunteers, myself included. It's an international sports, arts, and culture event, and it's been around for 40 years, but the first time in Asia. And the principles are participation, inclusion, and personal best. Everyone is welcome. I think what we really want to achieve, through the Gay Games is building that sense of community, which I think everyone here, all the speakers before me, we were talking about building that sense of community. And also, I think to also going beyond the community into the mainstream society, helping to change the way we perceive inclusion, through that sports, arts, and culture. I will, after my personal sharing, later on, if there were questions about the Gay Games, I'm more than happy to answer it. But for now, let me go to my story, and let me tell you how I come into Gay Games. So here, this is me, growing up. In the middle photo here, you see youngest child. I was with my mother, and baby, and my two older sisters. Very loving family, like many of you here. I think we are all quite privileged. I would say that by and large, I was just a normal kid, growing up in a largely homogenous society in Hong Kong, middle class. A little bit older, I grew up in the 70s and 80s in colonial Hong Kong. If you see in the photo on the right there, that's me, in central in Hong Kong, right outside the City Hall. And in the background there, you might see a little banner. It's actually Queen Elizabeth visiting Hong Kong. So that was a welcome the Queen, at that time. And then the photo on the left there is me in my high school morning assembly. If you look closely, I'm actually reciting passages from the Bible. I went to the school run by the Anglican Church. So needless to say, there wasn't a lot of discussions about sexual minorities or gender issues in the school when I was growing up in Hong Kong. And it was also during this time when I was in my high school, like many of you during adolescence, that's when I felt I began to feel my otherness, how I was different from other people. When I started, feeling the strong attractions to my classmates. So I was quite lost, and there was really no words, even though my family was really, really loving. But my parents, they grew up, before the World War II. Like there was really no words to describe how I felt, no language. And I remember quite distinctly when I was 16, one of my friends, he told me, hey, you're lesbian. I mean, at that time I was quite shocked, but I was also a little bit relieved. Suddenly I felt, oh yeah, finally has this label that I can identify with. But to be honest, I don't even know what the word means, lesbian. And I felt like I had to, leave home, to find my own voice. And so there I was, actually next slide, you'll see me in Canada. And that's probably, I can tell you a story about how not to choose a place to go to. So I went to Canada to study, but I really knew nothing about Canada at that time. And I chose Calgary because I saw Banff on TV. It was the Winter Olympics in 1988. And I thought, wow, this is a beautiful place. Plus at that time, tuition was very cheap in Alberta. And I don't know any one of you, whether you've been to Calgary before, but it's a largely white Midwestern province here, very conservative, very cold, place in Canada. And for the first time in my life, I actually became a visible minority, in addition to my identity as an invisible, minority, as whether I think for many of us, you feel the same, right? Being LGBTQ, you always have a choice to come out or not come out. And it's almost like every day you have to make that decision of coming out. So it was interesting for me to suddenly become a visible ethnic minority in Canada. And at that time, I started a youth group at the university, and I experienced some overt discrimination, to be honest. The youth group office, we had it in a community center. It was set on fire. Basically, it was arson. And people make fun of my accent, told me to go home, that sort of thing. It was pretty nasty. But at that time, it was through those hardships that I was also able to meet other people of color, other friends, in the group of the youth group. whom I don't think I would ever be able to meet had I not leave Hong Kong, being in the mainstream, middle class types of background, quite privileged. And then, but having said that, after I finished school, I immediately left Calgary. I moved to Toronto and continued to be quite active there in the community. And eventually I went to law school. So the photo here you see is me being called to the bar in Toronto. And as a young lawyer in Toronto, I was actually very, very lucky to have a female mentor at the forum. She was a straight ally, but she told me a story about her gay male friend who always put a photo of his boyfriend at the work desk. And she told me, hey, maybe you can consider doing the same. And I took her advice, and I've always put a photo of my girlfriend or my series of girlfriends, over the years at my work desk. And over the years, I have some, very interesting conversations with my colleagues at work because of those photos. And I'm really, really grateful, for taking the advice of my mentor. I guess, really all these experiences, right, from growing up in Hong Kong, moving to Calgary or Canada, and then going to Toronto, as a young professional, all these experiences, give me a few learnings. I guess number one, I realized that in different contexts, I have different identities. Like in Hong Kong, I'm Chinese mainstream middle class, quite privileged, but also invisible, like a sexual minority. In Canada, in Calgary, I'm a visible ethnic minority, but at the same time, being queer, openly queer, is much more acceptable. And it helps me to understand the interconnectedness of all our various identities. And I think because of that, because realizing that we are all connected, it really makes me kind of feel very strongly believe that, we need to stand with one another and support each other throughout, the journey. So that's my learning, one from my experience. And the second thing that I learned from it is really for minorities, visibility and representation really, really matters, especially having allies at work, in senior position, being willing to come out and stand up for you. Because I think it made a big difference for me, growing up as a young professional. And also for me, when I was able to come out, be at work, I also noticed how I was able to help other people behind me coming up, to come to me, because they feel safe. So next slide, please. So fast forward to 30 years, been practicing law for 20 plus years. I work primarily in the corporate world. And a few years ago in 2017, I turned 50. And I think like a lot of people, I had a midlife crisis. And I thought, okay, I don't want to re-examine the way I've lived. And so I actually quit my full-time work and started devoting more time and wanting to donate time back to the community. So it was just around that time that someone came to ask me, hey, there's this NGO, that is doing the sports events in Hong Kong, and they are looking for a lawyer. Do you want to volunteer for them? And at that time, to be honest, I'd never heard of the gay games before that time. And like any good lawyer would do, I Google them and did some due diligence. And then I realized, wow, this event has been around for 40 years, never been to Asia. And I thought, wow, it's interesting that they were thinking of leveraging the platform of sports, arts, and culture, bringing people together through those platforms and trying to remove stereotypes, right? Break down barriers. I thought that was a very interesting concept. So I said, okay, and I thought I was very proud that actually Hong Kong won, beat like 16 other international cities and won the bid to host the game. So I thought, wow, I really want to be part of it. And so I said yes. And that's how I started my journey with the games. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there are really two main objectives, right, for bringing the games to Asia. The first one was building a sense of community, and as you can imagine, the Gay Games is actually a 9-day event. We have 20 plus sports, over 30 different locations in Hong Kong, and also like 10 plus arts and culture activities and performances, all happening at the same time within that 9-day period, you know, and the games itself is for everyone. So it's open and accommodate the spectrum of our identities. That's not always being accepted in the broader society. And I think in Asia, you know, we don't really have that many opportunities for everyone to come together at that scale and be able to be who we are. And I think just imagining that, you know, that energy, and I thought, how would that feel, right? I mean, that would be, I think it would be a life-changing experience for anyone, you know, and it'll be very empowering. So that's something I really, you know, look forward to and hope the games could achieve and bring about in Hong Kong and hopefully in Asia and beyond. Next slide, please. And then the second part is really about the societal influence, right? I think we all agree. I mean, we heard many of the other speakers here earlier that, you know, Asia, you know, relative to the rest of the world, probably compared to, you know, is relatively still behind in terms of LGBTQ acceptance and protection. So again, like I said, visibility and representation really, really matters, right? And since winning the bid in 2017 to now, you know, the Gay Games have gotten a lot of media exposure and coverage from community organization and the likes in the run-up, because we work a lot with mainstream sports association, with schools, you know, with the businesses and things like that, really pulling everyone together. And you know, and I think that is great. You know, I mean, of course, the media coverage, you know, some of them are not supportive. We still have people opposing, but most by and large is supportive. And I think, you know, that for me, you know, I remember actually reading an article that have studied the Gay Games for over a 30-year period, and they study over 600 articles that a newspaper report about the fact that Gay Games have took place, right, in the city. And that research paper actually reviewed that, you know, those, just the mere fact of the this passive reporting actually have a positive, notable influence on public attitudes towards LGBTQ and the community issues. And I thought, wow, you know, this is great. You know, we have so many people talking about the games in Hong Kong, and I really see, you know, the level of acceptance, the dialogue that was moving forward. So that is also, you know, something that I'm hoping and hopeful, and I'm seeing that it is, you know, moving forward in terms of, you know, societal changing the way we perceive inclusion in Hong Kong and Asia. So next slide. So how can you support? So, well, I mean, the Gay Games is open for registration now. So if any one of you here, if you are interested, you know, really, really welcome you to join us in November. It's November 3rd to 11th. So we actually have, you can just scan the QR code here. You know, we, if you use the promo code GGHK, you even get a 30% discount off for the audience here. And of course, you can also follow us on social media, share about the games, you know, with your friends, or like Shanghai Pride, like Charlene, you know, just invite us to your speaking engagements. You know, we will be very, very happy to share, you know, that this is happening in less than 5 months. So with that, I will stop because I know time is running out, and hand it back over to Charlene.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. This is the first time I hear about the series of girlfriends. I'm going to find out more about that. See you in Hong Kong. Folks, we are all going to Hong Kong for Gay Games, 3rd to the 11th of November. Now, very quick question, Lisa. I know there's something coming out, pre-event leading up to Gay Games. What is it, and how does it tie in with working with corporations? Because we have some corporate people here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we actually have lots and lots of events, you know, in the run up to the games. But in particular, next week, we actually have a one-day conference in Hong Kong. It's called Building Corporate Athletes, the Power of Inclusion in Sports and Performance. So actually, it's an in-person event in Hong Kong, and we are having about 120 people in terms of audience. But we have speakers coming from like the UK, like Sandra Murray, who is like an out LGBTQ football player from the UK. And then we also have people, you know, from the region in Hong Kong, like Sylvie, who is like from Thailand, pop rock artist.
Anyways, various people from the region and also in Hong Kong. So the conference basically explored the principles and the practices of competitive sports and how it can foster a culture of excellence, resilience, and well-being in the corporate world. And basically what we wanted to do is to introduce this concept of corporate athletes, right? Basically imagining like how an elite athlete, the training, the performance principles, and how that can bring into the workplace. So in a way, it's like, working with corporates to share with them, hey, how you can, through sports, in terms of using the concept of, elite athlete training, how you can perform, and maintain a high performance types of corporate environment. And the same thing, like for employees, how they can also think of, kind of engaging in the sports and not just thinking of it as a workplace. But I guess more importantly, really through this conference, what we want to do was to highlight the importance of DEI in both sports and corporate settings, and how that can be used to enhance the potential and productivity, for everyone in a corporate. Yeah. But of course, we are also working very, very closely, with a lot of corporates and companies. And because, as I mentioned earlier, we are a registered charity in Hong Kong. So we have, it's primarily through corporate sponsorship that the games is taking place. We have no government funding. So, we work a lot with corporates, and then I think they also realize, in addition to putting money in, we also asking a lot of them to, hey, you can actually give your employees time, as part of your employee engagement, DEI, to volunteer for the games, or to even register them from a team, from a soccer team, from a, dodgeball team, to come join the game. So that's really that kind of what we mean by, inclusion in action, so to speak, right? To experience this event.
That's good. I think that's what we call walk the talk, right? I mean, companies, if you are serious about DEI, this is one of the
I guess I can't hear you. Hold on a second.
One of the opportunities for companies to have the employees join something related to inclusion, especially for LGBT+. Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. The next speaker is a personal hero of mine, okay? He is from Singapore. He's Bryan Choong, and pronounced he, him. He is the chair of Uga Chaga and chair of Regional Advisory Group at APCOM. Bryan started his life as a gay activist accidentally in 2005 and eventually became one of the faces that challenged the Singapore's anti-gay laws. Singapore repealed its anti-gay law in November 2022. Some of you may know it as the repeal of 377A. Give it up to Bryan Choong.
Thank you so much, Charlene, for the introduction. Let me just pull up my screen and hopefully it shows up correctly. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, right. So I titled my presentation as Accidental Activist because I always felt that my activist journey is really accidental. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I should also say even after working on this for about 18 years, I continue to feel that it's a privilege to be given a chance to do so with and for the LGBT community. So I'm going to show you the a few slides. This is my personal contact. If you want to find me online, you can search me online. If you belong to a certain generation, you still use Facebook, my Facebook handle is there as well. I will start off by sharing two things that shaped my life as a person. The first thing I'm going to share is about the influence of my mother. So my mom is here. That's her hugging me, relatively newborn, I think. I'm a big baby. And she is a really strong, very tough, and highly independent woman. And I think even if she belongs to this generation, she probably remains a single person. In my eyes, she's also a highly intelligent woman, despite of not having much formal educations, which is quite common in the 1960s in Singapore. She's a strong believer of people should live the life that they desire, and also people should mind their own business. So there are two learnings I've actually incorporated into my life. The first thing is, if you want something changed, do it yourself. or be part of the change. And that's something that I think really propelled me into doing what I'm doing, even after 18 years. She also have a second message itself. She says, stays out of trouble. I think in the activism space itself, this two is incompatible, but really this is what really guides my work as my message from my mother. The second influence in my life is my life in army. Like most cisgender men in Singapore, we all have to serve 2.5 years of military service itself. But for myself, I actually went on to do an 8-year service, partly because I really feel like I enjoyed my life as a soldier, and also it was an opportunity to pay for my own education. The other thing that I did in the army is that I actually came out at my workplace. So I actually came out to about half of my colleagues at my workplace itself. And I think it's quite unimaginable for most people that why do you choose to come out in the army? And I felt that it was necessary for me to do so because that was also the time that I started to be very involved in the LGBT space. And I feel that it's necessary for me to be who I am in my LGBT activism work and also be who I am at workplace itself. And I'm actually quite glad that my coming out process in the army was relatively easy and people were quite interested to understand me as a gay person. And I think the level of acceptance and support I received from them really shaped the way how I look at heterosexual or non-LGBT people look at LGBT issues. And that also gave me the strength and confidence that not all non-LGBTQ people are unaccepting. They are just not so well informed. If you give them the right education, they'll be quite good in moving on with it. So 2 lessons learned from my days in the army. What it has trained me is that I need to be extremely disciplined and I need to be very focused on what I'm doing. And I would say that the other thing that I've learned from the army days is that choose your battle really wisely. And I've applied this principle throughout my 18 years of activism work because there's so many things that people will throw at you. There will be so many things that people demand from you. You really have to choose what you are good at and what you can do well. So I'll give you a bit of context of what's LGBT like in Singapore. There's a lot of things going on. I can only give you a snapshot. Until November 2022, the main thing that sort of blocks the LGBT advancement in Singapore is really Section 377A, that piece of law that's left behind by the British that criminalizes same-sex consensual sexual behavior between 2 men. While the government said that it's not going to be actively enforced, its very existence itself actually influences how the media portrays the community. It really restricts how the LGBT population actually access public goods, such as public housing. It also affects how we can talk about LGBT issues, achieve workplace fairness on anti-discrimination at workplace. It affects how students can actually access socially inclusive educations. Last but not least, it also shapes how the healthcare and as well as the social service in Singapore, how it actually restricts or not so effective towards supporting the LGBT community. And so in that unusual environment, we managed to show our presence as the LGBTQ community. This picture is from 2009. This is the very first Pink Dot that was formed. 2,000 people showed up. I'm somewhere in the middle. This was the first public display of the LGBTQ population in Singapore. We are here. The first 2,000 people were really the first group of people to form and show the Singapore society we are present. 10 years later, we have actually grown into a massive size. This park itself is in the middle of Singapore. The park itself is not exactly very big. I think nearly 25,000 people squeezed into that park that very evening itself to show Singapore, the government, that Singapore is ready to repeal Section 377A. This is probably one of the largest group that ever showed up. Of course, since COVID itself, we have returned back to the park. This year on the 24th of June, we will be letting up the space again. But that really sends a message to Singapore, to the Singapore government, that we need to repeal Section 377A. I'll go back to my personal journey as an activist itself. And I said it's highly accidental. This is a picture of me 18 years ago. I think I look quite fresh there. I think years after, obviously, activism work sort of wears you down a bit. I started off volunteering as a support group facilitators, and I also got very involved in running public awareness workshops in Singapore. I'm also very fortunate to have some experience, and then we set off the first hotline service in Singapore in 2006. Eventually, I realized there is a limitation on how much you can do on the hotline itself. So I got myself trained as a professional counselor. I took on the professional counseling role. And I continued to lead GGHK as its executive director until 2015. And I stepped away and I realized that there are many other ways I can contribute to the movement. So in my capacity as an individual, as well as the chair of GGHK, I continue to engage the government on various LGBT issues. And I also happen to have an opportunity to be in the UPR process in UN to talk about how we can actually resolve some of the issues, the human rights issues faced by Singapore LGBT community in Geneva itself. So it was quite a life journey. I would say quite an interesting journey for myself. The one thing that I was most involved in throughout the years is the repeal of Section 377A itself. And I really involved in various types of capacity. When I first started in 2007, there was a petition, a signed petition itself. So as a relatively fresh volunteer, I went around getting people to sign on the written petitions, and that particular petition itself was submitted to the parliament. So in total, we have 2,500 people who signed their name, gave their ID, gave their address, and tell them that the parliament really needs to look into repealing Section 377A. We didn't think we would be successful, but I think what was most important is that we managed to mobilize 2,500 people to give their actual name. I think that's unheard of in Singapore. In Singapore, generally, people want to stay out of trouble. They don't want to be associated with any controversial issues, and I think we achieved that. The second time I was involved in was in 2010 when we had the first round of the constitutional challenge. What was again really mind-blowing is that we managed to raise $100,000 to launch the court case itself. Within 24 hours to raise $100,000 is also unheard of in the community. I think we were too successful to the point that people look at us and say, maybe Singapore don't really need the money for LGBTQ. But that was also another chance that we saw ourselves mobilizing the community. Finally, in 2018, I realized that two things make me decide that I should be directly involved as one of the three persons who is involved in the court challenge itself. The first thing is, as a counselor, however much I can help a person in the counseling space, there's a limitation if the system doesn't change. If the law doesn't change, the life of the individual will not change. The second thing is, going back to my mom's message, if you want something changed, do it yourself. So I've decided, after maybe sleeping over it for 2 days, I've decided that I should launch a challenge. Unfortunately, by 2022 February, we were told by the court that it is not ready, the system is not ready, the challenge was dismissed. Now, in Singapore, things happen either very slowly or happens really fast. And very strangely, after February itself, the government kicks into actions and they say that, okay, we are prepared to look at this and resolve the issue once and for all. So from March, April onwards, we started to engage the government, and they start to engage us on telling us how they're going to go about putting steps to repeal Section 377A. And finally, by the National Day rally itself in August 2022, which is really our State of the Nation. For some countries, they have State of the Nation. Our Prime Minister then announced that the government will repeal Section 377A on that day itself. It was a long journey. It was a highly emotional journey. I think some of us didn't think that would happen within our lifetime. Even as a person who is deeply involved in the whole process for good 18 years, it still was unsettling. You still do not know what's going into the speech itself. You still don't know what is going to be caveat in that process itself, but we were hopeful. And so finally, in November 2022, like Charlene said, we finally repealed Section 377A and ended the whole centuries of criminalization of gay sex in Singapore. Again, no one in our community thinks that this is ever going to happen. It's going to be a front line on a national newspaper, but it did happen. So after that is out of the way, there are a few areas that we are now moving into working on. We are looking into workplace equality. We're looking into access of better access to healthcare and social services. We're also thinking about how we can get some inroads into public housing, social inclusive education, and finally legal recognition of same-sex relationship itself. those things are very much still in work itself. But what we have seen since the repeal itself, we have seen increased number of LGBT individuals and parents who are coming forward to seek help. Parents now feel they are safe enough, it's okay for them to come forward to seek help if their children belongs to the LGBTQ community. We're also starting to see more organizations getting registered formally and more informal groups being formed. And last but not least, more corporations and more organizations want to be part of conversations. And this is Pride Month, and we are starting to see a lot more people starting their own initiative, wanting to be part of the conversation, being part of Pride Month itself. I should also say that there are really glimpses of hope that we are starting to see in the horizon itself. Across, after the announcement by the Prime Minister himself, there was a survey done by Black Box, quite a reputable survey company, and they are actually finding that we are starting to see people aligning to the message that we should repeal Section 377A. And on the topic about support towards gay marriages or same-sex marriages itself, at the present moment, it's rather quite low. Across the sample size itself is 31%. But if you look closely at the age difference itself, 18 to 24 years old, 62% of them, they are supportive. For those who are 25 to 34, they are 52% of them supportive. And those will be the change we're seeing in the future. And I really think that after all the years we've been trying to do repeal Section 377A and it's being successful, we are opening a lot of opportunity for us to make things happen, right? And so I'm glad I continue to be able to part of the process to make the things happen. And so my last message to everyone, some of you might be directly involved in the activism work, some of you might be thinking about it, some of you might be thinking about supporting LGBT work in wherever you are. I think one of the things I really remind myself is before my generation, there were activists who paved the road for us. And I am now in a good position to pave the way for the next generation. So right now in Singapore, we're now thinking about how we can actually make more space, more conducive space for the next generation of activists to step forward and really I wouldn't say take the fight, but take the movement forward to resolve some of the many things that we have actually shown earlier on. That's my last slide. And if you want to link up with me, this is my connections. Feel free to text me or anything. Thank you so much.
Wow. See, hey, folks, there is room for rainbow in Asia. I mean, look at all the colorful stories that we've heard today. So inspiring, so touching. And then, you know, at the end, Bryan, we hear from all the speakers, there is hope and the things that everyone is doing. And okay, when I say everyone, it's not only about the people who work in this field. Yeah, we need everyone, like all of you, in this to do something, to do one thing, even if it's one small thing, like a rainbow badge, perhaps during Pride Month. Okay, Bryan, I'm not going to let you go without asking you this question because it's also very important to me as a Singapore PR. What are the motivations for the passing of marriage equality to be successful in Singapore?
I think it's going to be a long process. I certainly hope that I will see it before I move on in my life. But I think it's something that is still within the still possible, just that it will take much longer. I mean, there are many reasons why same-sex marriage recognition is important. First thing first is the access of public goods, including public housing. Some of you might be familiar that Singapore, most of us live in public housings, and there's a differentiated arrangement for those who are married and unmarried. So if you are two person in a same-sex relationship itself, you are recognized as a joint single application. And that denies you a lot of subsidies, that denies you a lot of support in getting public housing. And that's one of the things I think really drive us to really to resolve this. The second thing is, I think without the legal recognition itself, there are a lot of things that you can't actually protect you and your partner, be it visitation rights in hospital or, you know, inheritance issues. There are a lot of practical issues on hand. But I would say that this is something that will take a long time for us to resolve. We are now trying to work on some of the things I mentioned earlier on that is nearer or more likely to take place, the lower hanging fruits. And I'm a believer that sometimes incremental change is something that Singapore is a bit more willing to deal with So we are looking out for more lower hanging fruits while working on a long-term same-sex recognition. So hopefully in no time, Charlene, you and your partners partnership will be recognized in Singapore.
Awesome, absolutely. In my lifetime, yes. Okay, thank you very much, Bryan.
And
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. So these were our talks for today. So let's give a big round of applause to all the speakers tonight. They were really awesome and amazing. And sorry for running a little bit over time. Just a lot. But we do hope that this event has inspired and empowered you from hearing diverse stories of resilience, advocacy, and progress. We witnessed the transformative power of the LGBTQ+ community. So remember that change starts with individuals, and together we can create a more inclusive world. So let's continue advocating, supporting, and celebrating each other.